iRacing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
The field is rolling on the back straightaway.
Get ready. This is going to be tight.
It is that time of the week again. We go racing in the NASCAR for Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time slot. A big soft, normally each and every week, up and around 5,500. What about 6,000 tonight? We have got about half a dozen Coca-Cola Series drivers coming to play today because they are racing here in a few days. It is a test session, and we get the guinea pigs for them today, I guess. But it means we're going to see some fantastic racing around what is an incredibly difficult Charlotte Roval circuit. We've got walls aplenty, not much runoff, and, well, bus stop chicane, which, Justin, is an absolute pain in the ass.
I mean, I guess that's a way to phrase it, but in regards to the bus stop, it is a section where it can be difficult to slow down, and it's one that's so technical because if you turn it too hard in towards the first part of the curbing, you're likely hitting the turtles and in turn, shuffling your way to the safer barrier. You take it too slow, you're likely getting hit from behind or end up messing up the braking zone. It's not an easy section to go side by side in either for a race such as tonight. But the main thing, as you talked about, many drivers from the Coke Series in the field tonight, this is a chance for them to see, okay, how is my setup going to fare in a similar situation compared to Tuesday? It's the same distance for tonight compared to the Coke race. Similar strategies can come into play. And in turn, this data is going to be crucial for many of these competitors tonight to know what's going to happen come next week.
We've seen a couple of drivers in the past abandon their races halfway through after getting the test data they needed. I don't think we'll see that today, Justin, because the strength of field is so high. There is a lot of iRating to be lost for drivers such as, say, Casey Kerr and Ray Alfala, number 1 and number 2 in the session. If they left, they would lose up at around 100 iRating. At that level, that's hard to get back. So I think we'll probably see drivers sticking it out for the whole race today, which won't be that long. Only about an hour and 10 minutes, we expect.
I'm expecting most of the drivers who are a part of that Coke group to actually run the full distance. Not just for that strategy we just talked about, but because for drivers like Casey Curlin, for Christian Challoner, for drivers as well in that group, and you can put in like Kane Cook, Jimmy Mullis, and Zach Novak, when they usually run these types of races, they run the full distance and run competitively. I've seen in some cases, if you think back to that race at Sonoma, we've seen Graham Bowen run on a fixed set inside the top 3. So in other words, it's a chance for them to flex their speed muscles, yes, but it's also a chance, again, to factor in what needs to be worked on. Is my car going to be handling well with the track rubbers up? Is this car going to need a bunch of improvements? There's going to be a lot of discussion points from some of these teams throughout their Discords and team speaks tonight to find that communication. For some of them, yes, they may back towards the back of the racetrack and then go back to work. That's going to be the main key thing, because if they are behind here, they're going to be way behind Tuesday.
That they are. Qualifying is going to be a good test of outright pace. At the moment, Ocean Walsh is fastest. Blake Reynolds is going to cross the stripe, and he is on an outlap, it looks like. He's just beginning his flying lap now through Heartburn Turn. That is a very infamous corner already. Wesley Pistol goes through that final chicane up over the turtle curbs, as they're called, at the Roval. And looks like that was an outlap as well. Nope, he goes 18th. That's slowest of drivers so far. 5 seconds off the pace there. Here's Patrick Lewis as well.
towards the bottom of the qualifying board, you may see towards the setup pace compared to those who have been able to maximize the amount of speed. Yes, it's not just about setup, it's about the technicality of how you handle especially the infield and the braking zones, how much confidence you have, how well you're at tire saving, but at the same time, you don't have a well enough setup car for this race, which, mind you, is a challenging one in itself. You're not going to have an easy time. For example, fixed setup races, they've seen fall of up to 4 seconds. You find a way to limit that in half even, that's a massive amount of time you can gain on the rest of your competitors. And it's going to be crucial for the rest of the weekend, the rest of your road course program, the rest of 2020.
And we'll see how this one pans out. It's going to be a fantastic run over the course of this race. Reynolds goes 10th. Carwell goes straight through the chicane. That'll be a slowdown and a lap time that does not count. Kane Cook really using the curbs there, two-wheeling it through the first part of that final chicane. He's 18th at the moment, and he's going to stay in 18th. And that is the field for qualifying. And this is how they are going to line up at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Roval, Ocean Walsh has pole. Casey Kerwin will start alongside him. Jarrett Liebert and Jake Matheson share the second row of the grid. Jose Solis Jr. Santiago Tires on row 3. Dylan Duvall and Will Norton are 7th and 8th. Alex McCollum and Blake Reynolds starting from 9th and 10th.
Ryan Lewis, 115.5 in qualifying, starts 11th with Tucker Minter starting in the 12th position. Row 7, Brian Mercurio. He's been very confident around this racetrack. That's around his ballpark. He's been able to run in the 115s throughout the week. That's good enough for 13th in qualifying alongside the multiple-time champion in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Ray Alfalla. Boyd Hogan and Patrick Moose start in row 8, with row 9 featuring Timo Toika and Kane Cook. Alan Belbaccio starts in row 10 at 1 minute and 17 seconds in the bracket, 3 seconds off the pole. He'll start alongside Tanner Love, who is an hour half a second off that.
Ryan Carwile, 21st. Matt Forcapa starting alongside him. Wesley Pistol, Christian Chana are on row 12. Jake Nichols and Matthew Benson on the 13th row of the grid ahead of Jimmy Mullis. Zach Novak, John Gorlinski, and Andy Tripiano, your top 30.
Rest of the drivers in the field, Michael Guest electing to start at the very back of the field, Jake Hickson, and as well, Malik Perez, that is Malik Ray, for reference sake. We'll see how long he lasts in the field. He has been known for trying to start from the last and try and complete the last to first challenge. You can see, though, with the conditions here, Ryan, this is going to be a nice and fairly cool race tonight. Not as hot as some of the other sessions throughout the week.
Yeah, it's going to be nice and good for the drivers, good for the tire wear as well. Should reduce it just a fraction compared to what they've tested so far this week. Although passing today is going to be difficult. The field spread is going to be very large, very quick. So coming from the back to the front, going to be extremely difficult. We're not going to see any caution periods to bunch the field back up. So qualifying was pretty important. And I think we're going to see some of those guys like Malik Ray have a really tough time moving forward towards the very front by the end of this race, especially given that immense talent we've got all the way up and down the field there.
As long as they have the good car is, you can tell everyone's backing up. Welcome to Coca-Cola things. That's the only point I have on that, Mark. But to be specific, passing can be difficult around this track where you need to minimize mistakes. That was the discussion point had in some of these races at this track throughout the week. If you have that talent and confidence at the road course, you can pick off drivers normally. You also, at the same time, though, need to find ways to capitalize on other people's mistakes, Ryan, because there's likely going to be a lot of them. Because the pace difference we've seen just in qualifying, mind you, with some drivers saying they just use the fixed set to see what they can do, is going to be massive throughout this field from top to bottom. There's going to be a lot of fast cars coming from the bottom up to the top of the pylon. In other words, race management also going to be crucial tonight. In other words, say you're fighting too hard for position, good luck. You're likely burning up your tires as a result.
There's 23 drivers that set a lap time, 33 in the field. Some of the names that didn't set times, guys like Christian Chana, Malik Ray, as we said, Michael Guest, John Gorlinski, Novak, Mullis. That's 4, 5, I can't count. NASCAR, Coca-Cola, iRacing Series drivers right there. So they're testing. But you've also got some of those drivers at the front. Casey Kerwin starting from 2nd. Dylan DeVol starting from 7th. We've got Blake Reynolds up there in 10th. Michael Loser in 11th. But also some of our regulars that we've seen in NIS competition. Ossian Walsh is on the pole. Jarrett Liebert 3rd. Jose Solis Jr. 5th. Will Norton. It is a who's who. And we're pretty confident that this 6,000 soft is our highest of the season so far. Maybe even eclipsing that of which we had back at Auto Club when it was a NASCAR domination in that one.
Pretty darn close to say the very least. But the main thing with all those names you just mentioned towards the top just about, a lot of them are teammates. The Nexus Esports machines have been good at short tracks as well as good at some of the road courses. A lot of the drivers have run at these tracks. A lot of the Coke drivers are keeping an eye on this at the moment. In fact, drivers like Keegan Leahy now piping in saying they'll be ghost racing this because this is important to see what they can do, not just on the track in visual form, but also in ghost form to see how their laps are.
And so we get ready to go green, and just like that, we are green. Ossian Walsh gets on the throttle nice and early through the chicane. We are racing from the Charlotte Roval. There's a good launch for Walsh. Got Will Norton around us outside through the very infamous Tubbs Heartburn turn. They all get through there nice and cleanly. Back half the field follow as well.
Nice clean launch, exactly what you see as a driver. Only one driver started from the pit lane, Santiago Torres, so he'll have a lot of time to catch up, but clean space to work on. But some of the drivers in battles like this are already nervous because this is a tough track to even be side by side at, let alone try and fight for positions at. Anyone slips up or gets a little bit loose, it can collect several cars.
Now that camera shot you just saw there, can't wait for that one. A little bit later on in the race, you're going to have cars either side of that very thin concrete wall. As we head into the bus stop for the first time today, being reprofiled since it was first introduced back in, remind me, 2018, I think it was. It was very tight then. Now it's been, I guess, elongated and made less dramatic when you actually hit those curves. You have less chance of firing into the fence. Someone almost there had to really round it up and get that thing turned.
Yeah, this carbon was adjusted for the 2019 race specifically and made its debut with the Coke Series. But new leader, Casey Kerwin with the pass.
Yeah, Walsh too hard over the final two curbs. Loses out on the exit. As you say, Casey Kerwin slips through to take the lead away. Jarrett Liebert closes up as a result of that. Top four real close together, bumper to bumper at the moment. About a 2.8 second gap then from that group to 5th place Blake Reynolds, who's had a pretty good start, +5 already. Very tricky to pass anywhere in this infield section. Most of the overtakes I expect to see down at turn 1 and potentially through here and into the bus stop as well. The bus stop move does rely on someone backing out of it because I don't really want to go through there side by side.
Yeah, that's a good way for someone or both cars to get collected with the turtles on the right side and that very tight safety barrier on the left side. It's not as dangerous, yes, as the original bus stop where you could go near full throttle and it was almost like a launching pad just about with how much speed you carry. But now you kind of need to be more timid in it, more technical on your braking to make sure you don't allow an opportunity for someone to get a run, let's say, for the final corner and in turn better speed to build up down the front stretch off the turn 1. Looks like Walsh falling off a touch. Garrett Liebert looking for a chance to pass.
You mentioned it being a 55-lap race, Justin. It's looking to be a one-stopper, but you can do it on 2, and that's what you've seen drivers do so far this week. Because of the tyre drop-off, the track being slightly cooler, I wonder if we're going to see a few more drivers go for that one-stop strategy.
I think with the fall-off, though, it is a viable option to try 2-stop, realistically, because the fuel's about 27, 28 laps. when you do the math. And originally my thought process was, you want to save that 40, 50 seconds in pit lane. Then there was a race on Wednesday I was a part of for a broadcast. Drivers actually made that work and gained a lot of time as a result in some positions because they were 4 seconds quicker on that track on fresher tires. It got to the point where the race leader ended up actually coming in the next lap to make sure he didn't get overcut by the fresher tires and lose the lead by the end of the race. So I think it kind of dictates partly how these drivers run their strategy, but also at the same time when I do the math and the fuel, it's also tight when you do the math in your head, Ryan, because if you do that, you might have to save for one of those runs to make sure you can make it on a one stop, maybe by just for a half a lap or two.
Ooh, there's a mistake. Car runs wide. That's 10 of love. And that looked like it cost him 1 or 2 spots. But keep my eye, as we have been on the broadcast, on this second place scrap. Walsh really starts to struggle, it seems, around lap 3, lap 4 here. Falling away from Kerwin, as Jarrett Liebert is all over the back of him. Just struggling to find a way through. They cut the exit from the chicane, very tight there. There's no slowdown or off track on the inside. Painted blue and red stripes, I guess we'll call them. So we'll see drivers pretty much straight line the exit from the chicane all day today.
And you mentioned the slowdown chance. You take that section too fast, that's about 2 to 3 seconds. And it's a different slowdown policy compared to when we were at Sonoma last, for example, even the Daytona road course, where you cut the corner, you have only X amount of seconds to get that slowdown penalty served. It's not where you can serve it through an entire lap or so and then just naturally serve the penalty in the middle of the racetrack, in the middle of these slower sections behind traffic. You make a mistake, you're going to lose a ton of time, to say the very least. Speaking of drivers losing a bit of time, Valentino already -2 on the track, -10 for Ryan Carlisle. Santiago Torres already has caught up to the back part of the field. That's how quick he was, despite being 15 seconds behind the rest of the field from the pits.
Whatever he does in this race, wherever he finishes, it's not going to look as good on the stat sheets. It's going to show a P6 start and a P whatever finish, when, yes, in fact, he was 15 seconds back of that pit lane start. So we'll definitely keep an eye on him as this race progresses. I dare say a top 20 is certainly in the books for him. Will Norton up in 9th at the moment. In fact, he's lost a spot on this lap. Jose Solis Jr. has gone by him, and Norton's gone and lost a chunk more time past that as well. You can see the gap between them as Solis Jr. slid his car out of that last corner and almost kissed the concrete on the right.
Yeah, get a little dicey with McCollum also following on behind his spotter, likely launching along and trying to see what's happening here tonight, see what needs to be adjusted here in Blake Neer. Should note, we were watching that battle for second for a bit. Here's the thing with that grouping that we were talking about. Walsh, we mentioned with Nexus. Lined up with Casey Kerwin is Jarrett Liebert up towards the front. He's been held up and losing 2 seconds now. Some of these drivers are not going to like being held up for much more longer, including drivers in groupings such as this if, say, McCollum reaches the back end of Norton if he feels he's faster on the long run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the aggression level comes from today, because as we've seen already, it is quite tricky to pass. We've seen that with Liebert on the back of Walsh. But knowing there's not going to be any cautions, you can't afford to get held up for too long either, because once you start getting held up, you fall further and further away from the other cars further ahead of the one right in front of you, and it starts to compound itself into a very difficult race. And you lose a lot of time. Already there's a 10-second spread across our top 10 drivers. McCollum in 10th, Kerwin first.
That shouldn't be a surprise, honestly, the amount of spread, but we mentioned the potential of attrition. If you miss even your braking mark, you're likely smacked into the wall. Malik Ray has just joined the list of drivers with major mistakes, in fact is done for the night. As a result, likely, he nearly ran over the back end of Michael Guest and a couple other cars in traffic. He's now in the pit lane with significant motor damage after crashing in turn 3 last lap. McCollum you see on here already just scraped the wall on the outside line. He's pushing so hard here.
Yeah, I've seen a couple drivers do that. Little dents to the right side front fenders of a few cars as a result of just getting a little bit too wide through that really long, almost double apex left-hander that leads us back onto the oval portion of the racetrack over at oval turn 1. It's very tricky because it's very easy to hit the fence on the outside in the middle of the corner. Very easy to hit the fence on the inside as you turn in. And guess what? It's very easy to hit the fence on the outside of the exit of the corner as well.
2 seconds of fall off already. Want you to listen to some of the gas and brake throttle movements in this infield. Take a listen. How much throttle input and how much he has to baby that throttle and how loose his car is getting. That was an issue in the real world race here and there, and as well a bit last year as well for the Coke Series. These drivers are sliding around as this track is rubbering up.
He almost lost that. He was completely sideways, wasn't he, over that crest in the middle of the infield as we cast our eyes slightly further forward once more. Walsh has finally lost that spot to Jarrett Liebert. Jake Matheson slipped by him as well. Here's Real Fowler dancing on the brakes, trying to get by the car in front. Brian Mercurio hasn't been able to do it, and Mercurio has actually got by him. So our Fowler here is going backwards a little bit. Started 14th, got as high as 11th, now back to 12th.
Yeah, that's a little way to get a bit heart attack, to say the very least. Just seemed a little bit too loose on braking, maybe a brake bias thing. Here's the thing, though. Bobby Zelensky had talked about this during this first stint when he was having that dominant run, remember, for the Coke race at the Daytona Road Course by 20 seconds. The first run, he said he felt he could go even quicker, but his car was loose. The second run, however, was where the car's handling really came into play. I'm curious if this is going to be the same now for groupings such as this, where yes, it's loose now, but as this race progresses and the day gets later, the track gets a little bit cooler off and more rubbered in for less fall off. That's going to handle a bit better as a result of, even though you're struggling this run right now, you may be better later.
The track's going to change for sure, but I don't think it's going to change that much. The race isn't long enough for that. Relatively speaking, it's a bit of a sprint race today in terms of actual race length and time. So I certainly wouldn't be adjusting the car for a late race change, because I think what you've got at the start is going to be pretty much consistent all the way through.
Yeah. Should probably rephrase what I mean by that is adjusting to your driving style more so, and how the natural setup, not in racing adjust to the track itself.
Yeah.
Because think of it this way. Some of the races that may have transition for day to night, you adjust it more so for the night because you're likely finishing the race under the lights, for example. If you know you're ending the race in late afternoon, you adjust the car to late afternoon. That's basically the philosophy here for a lot of these drivers. But at this point, Casey Kerwin, he's just been able to take sail so far, and this shouldn't be a surprise. He's a very solid road course racer when it comes to the Coke Series and on the iRacing service. Many cases in NAS competition, when there was the lowdown for his package in 2018 on back specifically, he was always in the top 2 behind Bobby.
How about his paint as well? The Jordan paint scheme there. Wonder if that's something akin to what we'll see next year in the Cup Series with Cameron and Jordan entering their team. Names still to be announced on that part. I watched last lap that's just gone. Blake Reynolds poking up the inside of Oisin Walsh through turns 3 and 4. Wasn't able to complete the maneuver. It seems like Matheson might be slightly holding Walsh up here as well. Hasn't pulled away from him that much, and Walsh is sticking with him.
If anything,
very close to the clutches of Reynolds.
I was just about to say, if anything, they're both holding up Reynolds, because you mentioned Jared Liebert feeling like he was held up a little bit, it looked like, behind Walsh. he's kept the distance exactly the same with Casey, as we talked about with the same technical alliance. These cars, they've fallen off an extra 3 seconds. There's a massive amount of difference in the pace and how they build up their setup geometry and their chassis to be able to handle this track and handle some of the fall off. These cars, they're in the 119s. The leaders, they're in the 118s in clean space.
Start of this race in qualifying, it was 1:14.8 from Casey Kerwin. So that's a drop-off. It is massive, 4 to 5 seconds. I think with that, we could be looking at two-stop strategies. What's the pit lane transit time here, Justin?
As mentioned, around 40 to 50 seconds, give or take, was the ballpark seen this week so far. But the main thing is also how you enter the pit lane, because it can be difficult to try and turn in, as well as that pit exit with that wall. That could also take you out right here. Say there's a car battle such as this, that can spell trouble on your pit exit, as Walsh wants to get by his teammate in Matheson on the high side. And this is holding up Reynolds to the fact that where Duval's ready to pounce. Here we go.
Here we go. Reynolds going to take him 3 wide. Matheson's going to back out of that one. Going to take the loss of losing 2 spots as opposed to being pinched in a sandwich down there at the right-hander. And Walsh gets a spot back. Finally, Reynolds follows through as well. Now we get to see if Walsh has any outright pace advantage over Reynolds. Now that he's got clean air, he has the chance to pull away from Blake Reynolds. He can't do that. I think we'll probably see that number 3 car back up to his rear bumper very, very quickly in that Coca-Cola scheme car.
Yeah, that Team Dillon Esports machine, I think it's just going to be where he finds the run to get by Walsh, because again, all that scrapping lost him another 2 seconds on the racetrack. Just continuously going backwards in time the more these cars fight. Keep in mind, Tucker Minner, Jose Solis Jr. are also just within reach of this as well. If things get a bit scrappy, then they have a bit more of a buffer here. Keep in mind as well, a lot of the drivers have the deeper confidence for braking zones. We're seeing that for Reynolds. Here comes the run.
Oh, that was opportunistic. The gap wasn't really there, but he's forced it open, or Walsh has no choice but to probably relinquish this spot. He's on the outside for the next 2 corners as well. No way he can go around the outside here. He proves it, and Reynolds goes through. And in the space of just a lap, Blake Reynolds is up 2 spots.
What did I say? More confidence deeper in the brakes, and if you feel like you can stick it, you're likely going to see a car shove their way through there. And he, like I said, I think felt like he was getting held up by Matheson and Walsh in this grouping. Now, it's just the fact of, can he pull away here and continue to build a gap on the racetrack?
Oh, look at Walsh. Right up on the bumper. Through the bus stop chicane. Not cutting Reynolds any slack through there. And he's getting very close into the final chicane as well. He's not going to send the lunge, but he is very good on the brakes. Reynolds slightly wide. It is 1 lane and 1 lane only through that final chicane. If you're slightly off it, you're going to catch the curbs very awkwardly. And Reynolds is able to escape that challenge by the skin of his teeth.
I think I remember telling the story with the Daytona Road Course that all of his teammates from Team Dillon Esports ran the 24 Hours at Daytona and won their specific split with the race car. It seems that skill set comes into play. He loved the Daytona Road Course. He looks confident here in the infield especially. That's where he's much more quicker than anybody else on the racetrack at the moment, and this is where he's just been able to build up so much time now compared to everybody else in that choo-choo train.
Sorry. Yeah. It is a train, isn't it, right now? 3.6 seconds, by the way. Kerwin would leave it. And then that Reynolds, Walsh, Matheson scrap. A little bit behind them, we've got a battle between the number 7, the number 54, that's Brian Mercurio, and Alex McCollum. Mercurio, memory serves me right, was in front of Ray Alfala, and behind Mercurio, behind McCollum, sorry. So they switched around. Mercurio's gained a spot. Where's Ray Alfala gone? Justin, he's back in 18th place.
Yeah, Ray didn't have a good time at the Daytona Road Course. Doesn't look to be the case here tonight. And keep in mind, he's one of the drivers looking to battle for the championship in this race tonight. You also have drivers in the grouping we talked about. For example, that like Ryan or Luza in the field this evening. Several others who are going to be fighting for keeping inside the top 20, like Christian Chowder, and drivers like Kane Cook here you see grouped up here. There's a lot of pressure for these drivers, and for some of them, the main goal is simple. To paraphrase something Casey Kerwin said for Talladega was, I'd rather finish 25th than wreck battling for the race lead and finish last. In other words, you want a car that can survive and be drivable to get to that 25th spot or better. Not have a car where, yes, it may be quick to start, but then loses control and can snap you straight into the safer barrier.
Yeah. It's a good mindset, that. We know how much consistency wins championships, but I can also list drivers that would prefer to wreck racing for the win. Obviously no one prefers to wreck, but there's drivers that prefer to go all out running for the win. Remember the Charlotte Roval, its first ever race here? Jimmy Johnson wrecks trying to win the race, the last corner down here with Ryan Blaney. No regrets, he said over that. As we saw a slowdown as we came through 3 and 4 of the oval. Who was that going quite fast?
McCollum. Alex McCollum, who had to let these cars go here, so that shuffles him back -6 from his starting position. Who's in the same grouping of Lockdown Racing Machines. Have been working a lot in terms of track time. If you don't know, for those who do not know, Anthony Alfredo runs a fixed setup series on Wednesday where both of those cars for Richmond Raceway Esports run in those races. Guess what? Moas wasn't available for that race. He was following along with it, though, with the happy hour event, helping out the real-world drivers. Novak, well, he was quick, and then he hit the wall on lap 2 and killed the entire suspension. In other words, these drivers you see here in this grouping have put in a ton of work, whether it's been in leagues, whether it's been in official races, or whether it was with the NASCAR Happy Hour event Wednesday.
Can we talk about the fact that in this group, Christian Chalner, 24th to 12th, Jimmy Mullis, 27th to 13th, Zach Novak, 28th to 14th, just behind them, Jake Nichols, 25th to 17th. These guys are moving. They are, though, 20 seconds away from the lead.
Is that really a surprise, though? Because you mentioned Casey and his speed up at the front. Cook's likely on a variation of that, as we talked about. They work together as well. Chowder works a bit with Novak and Mullis. Those cars have raw pace. And I think the key we're seeing here from tonight is all the main technical alliances and the drivers in the Cup Series have figured out, for the most part, to maximize speed in the infield, because that's where you can lose so much power. You find a way to limit the tire wear in this section, you're likely battling for the race to win or battling for a top 10. You lose time, like we've seen for some of the drivers who may not have the same resources or may not have been able to find that speed. They've been dropping backwards, as we've seen all night so far. Like the Nexus cars who qualified up at the front had good short-run pace, and some of their own teammates who have been struggling at the back of the field. We're seeing the perfect examples of that right now, to where you're good in the infield, you can bounce it out in the outfield, you're flying.
Yeah, and let's have a look at Timo Toyota. He's often a fan favourite in our NAS broadcast here on the iRacing Esports Network. He's currently running in 19th place, so he's -2 from where he started. But the good news, if you're a Toyota fan, he's probably about to gain a spot. He's right up behind Ray Alfala, whose slow fall down the order is looking like it's going to continue in a minute. There they are, heading towards the chicane. On the brakes, just look how much time that Toyota gains. Is it a lack of confidence on the road courses? Is it just... I mean, we know Alfala's a good driver, but what is it about these road courses just isn't clicking for him?
That's actually a difficult question, and more so something where, again, he felt like for the road course, at least the way I interpret it, was wanting to be more on the safer side. But the drivers around him, keep in mind Hogan helps him with his progression on the racetrack. Timo Toyota, that SimCity Esports driver, also works with Nexus a bit, yes, but he runs a lot of road course races while also being that fan favorite. So I think part of it is just liking the road courses and having the raw pace on a road course compared to, say, being an oval specialist and may not having the same amount of adaptability or amount of experience as some of the other competitors. Because keep in mind, some of the drivers we see throughout the field have ran in various world championships outside of Coke in recent months and recent seasons, like Kerwin on the dirt side, with Novak on the dirt side, with a couple others trying to qualify for rallycross.
There's some real vastly versatile drivers. Vicente Salas is to say someone we've seen before. He's running the iRacing Rallycross World Championship now as well. There's a couple of NASCAR Coca-Cola drivers that run World Championships on the dirt and in Rallycross, road. Not everyone has just one lane they stick to. They like to branch out. Ray has been a phenomenal oval driver, but maybe, yeah, his weakness lies in that he doesn't quite branch out as much as those other guys. When we get to these road course races, this is where we start to see that getting, I guess, highlighted. Honestly, I'd take all these championships if it meant I was this bad, if it meant I was not that great on a road course. I wouldn't be complaining.
Yeah. There are some drivers you have to think of that thrive on road courses too, and really come out to play the road courses. Like we mentioned Timo Toika, of course. Other drivers we've seen usually come on in full force that are usually up in this split when there isn't this big amount of a coke field and be competitive here. Who are likely up towards the front in second split for comparison's sake. But look at this. Chowder's starting to let cars go here. He's losing a bit of pace here.
Just got passed by Jimmy Mullis up at turn 1. They switched around and kept themselves very close to Kane Cook in the process. So that's actually a pretty neat exchange between them. Zach Novak is still just sat there trying to figure out a way by the trio in front. Ooh, I reckon we might see a move in a moment. Mullis is right on that bumper. Backs himself up. And gets a little nudge from Challoner as a result. Loses a little bit of ground to Kane Cook. He needs to launch well off one of these corners, either off the exit of there or off the exit of here to make the move.
And I think he has potential, but here's the thing. You see that damage? That's the exact type of damage that killed him on Wednesday in that event I was referring to. You smack the wall too many times, your car is destroyed. Will Norton's got a problem, though. He just had to let several cars go here.
Went straight ahead at the chicane, and that has cost him a bunch of spots. Starting to see some mistakes for some drivers. We're going to see more and more as the run goes on. The grip level starts to fall away. Kane Cook, maybe slightly defensive into the right-hander there, turn 2.
Yeah, just a touch bit. I'm not surprised to see a bit of defensive-ness from Cook here, just wanting to keep the track position before they get towards that first pit stop window. We are approaching that mark, mind you, a little bit. It is looking like more and more that drivers have not elected to try and split it up, because if they tried to, it would have been a couple laps ago we would have seen drivers. The only driver to even try it tonight, Ryan, is Andy Trupiano. The others have not even looked at the pit lane yet, unless it's for crashes.
Yeah, we've got 55 laps. We're getting towards halfway, 10 laps till we hit that marker. So, yeah, looks like we're going to see mainly one-stop strategies from these guys. And it wouldn't surprise me. In fact, I can probably confidently say all of the Coke drivers in here are also doing full race runs where they do 2 stops outside of this.
Yes. That's the thing, and one of the main people I heard this specifically from is from Lucy. Yes, I know he's in 16, but he mentioned specifically for one of the races where you add up the amount of seconds you lose on a full run if you do a 2-stop versus a 1-stop when you come down, etc. That's where the thousands of laps partly come into play there, and in that extra bit of data. You don't put in that work, you don't know those options and have that to analyze and have for your data and your telemetry. It's crucial to have as a driver. Should note that John Gorlinski has come in. He's trying the two-stop, it looks like.
So we'll keep an eye on him and see how his race pans out. Scored 27th last time he crossed the line. I love that clip. I know he's 16th. Let's not forget that 16th would absolutely demolish most of the people watching this race right now. But at this level, it is tight margins. They're coming up on a lapped car. No, they're not. They're actually coming up on Brian Mercurio. Mercurio's lost quite a bit of ground the last couple of laps. Oh, there's contact through the chicane. They're sliding on the exit. They're beating, they're banging, they're still touching. And around goes Jimmy Mullis on the infield grass. Watch out on the outside, Christian Challoner, as he rounds up Kane Cook.
Tempers are flaring there, and that's going to be a discussion from somebody at the very least. Definitely tight matters. Yes, it was tight off the corner, but that was a little over the line.
Bit of impatience shown from Jimmy Mullis. He was starting to use up that bumper. And he used it up a bit too much there through that final chicane. And they could not get themselves unhooked from each other. So
yeah,
Cook loses 2 spots there.
Yeah, this is going to be now where a lot of drivers are trying to come down to the pit lane with all this, mind you, because we're approaching that edge of the fuel numbers we talked about. Here's the thing, if they don't make it to that exact halfway mark I was mentioning there is the chance they can come out, say, just before that, and then open up the window for winning it coming next time. But that's just a possibility. It's not a certain ability in this race, to say the very least. Curious how drivers like Matheson or Tucker try and differentiate it.
I was curious then to see if Jimmy Mullis came in and decided to just pull the trigger and go for a bit of an undercut. But he sped out. Just watched Jake Hickson drive out of pit lane, but he's a lap down now. And Christian Challoner slipping by Jose Solis Jr., who's got damage. He was moving slow there. Look at his right front. It is far from how he started this race. Loses 2 to Christian Challoner and Zach Novak coming out of there. Oh, Novak just whacked the fence.
That was actually as well Solis Jr. who followed him into the fence. Any harder damage than that, that car is cooked. Because the harder the damage on the right side, the more time you're going to lose, especially in the speedway section. Because that's a ton of aero damage you're going to have and lose a bit of speed. That car could be in trouble the rest of the way. On the right side, if you're Casey Kerwin, you're just taking a nice breather and hoping that the traffic doesn't hold you up too much here.
He can afford to take his time with the traffic as well. He's just got by Santiago Tires. He's got Matthew Benson up in front of him. He's got a 9-second gap. No reason to be aggressive, no reason to try and force his way by these laps cars. Got to be careful. Wow. Santiago Tires over that big crest, middle of the infield. Dropped his left sides off into the fake AstroTurf and almost actually slid into the side of Casey Kerwin. It's just letting him go now. Tires on those fresh tyres has a pace advantage as a result.
Yep, just smart race management. Just let the car on the fresher tires go. No need to hold them up, or else that can risk potential incidents. But a couple other drivers have tried that strategy. Was just referring to Alfawa, Hogan, as we talked about, Tanner Love, Matt Forcapo, who's already lapped down, Tires, as we've already seen. Everybody else, I think, may just about get to that one-stop window on the gas at this race.
$31 to go. We're definitely in that window, I'd say. They're thereabouts now. That one stop always scares me how close they get to the safe barrier exiting that chicane. Looking at the number 90 at the moment. This is Tanner Love and Zach Novak. Novak's up 18 spots in this race. One of our biggest movers so far. Sitting in 10th as someone tumbles down the order on the timing screens. I wonder if that's a pit stop.
Yep, that was... Pistol has been off the racetrack for the time being. Jake Nichols is also ducked in for that same call mentioned. 25, then split it wherever you need to try and go for an undercut if you need be to be able to make it to the end of the race. Everybody else, they just need to go an hour lap or so. Lap or two. They'll be clearing golden space. It's just a matter of being defensive to some of the cars you may be up for grabs for in terms of that two-stop strategy, however minimal that may be with some of the fall-off.
Mercurio Challenger love battle. Love a lap down, but he's in amongst it. Right in front of Novak and Hickson. In fact, Novak might have just got himself a slow down, or he's just letting Hickson go. Hickson's on fresh tyres, and I think it's the latter. This is an interesting phase, and there's lapped cars that are quicker than the leaders.
Yeah, they are faster, but here's the thing. Everybody else is going to come in the next lap or so, right? So they're in turn then going to be faster. They're going to be quicker, yes, for the final stint, but again, that's that management I was talking exactly about there, Ryan, where you want to have the speed for the race and be able to calculate, am I going to lose X amount of time, too much time in the pits? Guess what? The fall off has only been 3-4 seconds, as we talked about, but it hasn't been a drastic 3-4 seconds. It's a manageable 3-4 seconds. The Denny Hamlin Esports machine of Casey Kerwin coming in right as expected at halfway.
Cohen pits from the lead. If no one else pitted, he'd probably come out around about 15th place. But we'll see who else follows him. Jarrett Liebert follows. Blake Reynolds going to continue. Ossian Welsh going to come to pit road. Dylan Duvall going to come to pit road. Jake Matheson. Oh, steady on. Don't lock up those brakes and smack that concrete. That was fast and aggressive from Tucker Minter. Got it pulled up, but he was moving coming into pit lane.
I mean, we've talked about drivers like Malik Ray who are known for trying to send it as hard as they can. This is a deceptive lane, however, because I think in part with that wall, it has been kept there for the oval races on the iRacing service, and you speed in too hard there, even yes on the Roval portion, you're likely locking up the tires and you're getting a speeding penalty where that green cone is, which can be difficult to see now, but also with the fact that you carry too much speed, you're demolishing the wall and knocking it down. Then there's this hard left turn where, say you're side by side like the teammates there, that can cause some problems.
Casey Kerwin came out right behind Zach Novak, quickly dispatched of him and Jake Hickson as well. Now he's going to slip by Tanner Love. Christian Challoner's there. Brian Mercurio's there. Kerwin did not come out in a kind spot. Luckily, he had that big margin to play with because it would be evaporating right now in this ugly group he's emerged as Blake Reynolds brings it to pit road nice and calm and controlled. For him, no dramas getting that slowed down. There's Kerwin, third car, in line. Moving up a lane because he knows that Challoner's coming in. He knows that Mercurio's coming in. He wants to give them the room as Mercurio just pinches the left fronts and slides it to the pit speed limit. Of course, no pit limiters on the NASCAR car vehicles, which means you've got to manually manage that speed all the way down the pit road. Second gear, if you're in it, lights up green on your dash to tell you that that is the optimal amount of revs to be using. Is that the right term, Justin, to get it down to pit road speed?
Yeah, you can also use, though, the engine braking in that you can use the downshifts to help you slow down. It's more difficult, I've noticed, in recent weeks, especially with this stock car. If you say keep it in the gear you're in for the entry and then shift it down once you get into the lane. You start naturally shifting on down, it helps you slow down the car if you got the proper brake bias. They've gained some time, it's a bit of trouble. Novak involved with a bit of trouble. Ryan Luza also in trouble.
Whereabouts? We'll see what's happened to them. On the director can't find
Couple
him.
of chatters. Well, Norton had mentioned some trouble as well around his spot, so it might have been something where Will Norton made a mistake. from what we were hearing on the radio just moments ago, where there were cars having trouble in the middle of the racetrack in turn 3 this past lap, because we mentioned the side-by-side fighting. John Gorlinski was side-by-side with Zach Novak, got clipped by Norden, and hit Luza immediately hit the ejector switch as a result of all that stacking up. Those drivers now with significant damage, if not out of the race.
Yeah, Michael Luza's definitely out of this race. Big shame for all of them. They were in pretty decent positions. And that was right behind Casey Kerwin. He just got through that pack, so very fortunate for him that he just navigated his way past all that drama. As Tucker Minter just did the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 15.9. Showing good pace, not fresh rubber. About 3/10 quicker than the effort that Kerwin just put in. He has circled back to the lead, Casey Kerwin, with a 7-second advantage over Jarrett Liebert. So he lost a couple of seconds in that pit stop cycle, but it's still looking relatively comfortable for him.
Yeah, just needs to keep it on the racetrack, and I think he's in a comfortable spot. It's just everyone else, though. I think that can shake things up, because what just happened with Norden could completely change the whole perspective of this race, right? You now have drivers like King Cook with a chance to pounce, for example, in this spot. Ray Alfalo with his strategy call, he's going to have to come in again, for example. So now there's different playing
He's just
cards.
Straight through the chicane. Down the back straight, sorry, Justin. We just missed it on the front of our shot. I think we just saw someone else go straight through the chicane as well. In fact, we did. That was Will Norton. So Norton and Alfala both missed their braking points. Both go straight at the bus stop chicane. Alfala, look at the group he's got behind him. Right behind him, now to his inside. Here comes Jake Nichols down at turn 1. Going to get that move. Alfala's going to turn it in front of Mercurio. Is checks up and Challoner gets into the back of them. Zach Novak is reassembling his pace and coming up to the rear end of these guys as well. So this is a pretty big scrap. And in fact, here comes Mercurio. Got the momentum off the exit. Going to slip up the inside of Alfala. This could open the way for Challoner as well. It does. Can Zach Novak capitalize? Be on the wrong side of the road if he follows him through there, but he's going to try it. He's going to try it. He's just about going to do it. Around the outside, the double left-hander. That's a solid move. And that is a whole lot of grip that Ray Alfala does not have.
Yeah, I think if he tried to fight that, that would have held him up really too much there. But here's the interesting thing. The last driver to come in at all was Alex McCollum, I believe. And he ended up coming after about 30 laps or so again, so he might be trying some different adjustments here. So now some of the teams are realizing, okay, we've got to change up some stuff here to make it towards the end. What can we do? Others like Christian Challoner are finding out, okay, how's my car going to react with my whole front nose crushed in?
Poorly is the answer to how that one's going to react. Novak was able to drive that very shallowly. Is that a word? Off the exit of turn 1 there on Mercurio. There was no way through in that little concrete canyon, I like to call it. On the exit of turn 1 and through turn 2. Just prime position for big stack-ups when we go through starts and restarts. Thankfully no caution today, so we're not going to see that. But Novak looks like he's recovered from that drama you spoke about a few laps ago here. He's still plus 17 in this race, so he's still having a good one. In fact, our biggest mover will be him, plus 17. Tied with Jake Nichols as well, who's up in 8th.
Again, though, the tough thing is, based on the map adding up here, I think still it's going to be tough for a couple of those drivers to even try and stretch it. We've tried a couple lap undercut. For drivers like Brian Mercurio, though, he's been known in many series across iRacing the past year or so especially to be fairly proficient on the road courses. Take the FTF Grand National Series, for example. He's won a couple times in that series. He's also been very strong on the road courses in particular to be able to be competitive here. He likes road course races. He's a well-respected driver. He's having a well-respectable race here, just needs to think smart here because he makes a mistake like right there. Novak's going to just take advantage like that.
And Mercurio tumbles just like that to the back of the group. Nichols, Challoner were almost side by side through turn 3 and 4. Novak's got plenty of speed. He's got the momentum and the run. He's going to get to the inside through NASCAR 1 and 2. Nichols going to let him go and tuck in behind him. Cover off any move from Mercurio. In fact, he's not going to be able to do that. Mercurio on the brake. It's very strong. Nichols loses 2. This is a good battle. A lot of drivers going forwards and backwards in this group. Challoner now starting to pull away from them.
Keep in mind, Christian Challoner had one of his best finishes of the year at the Daytona Road Course for the Coke Series, where he was top 3 much of the race, had a great battle towards the end with Logan Clampin. In fact, he's actually a fairly competitive road course driver and helps train some drivers, in fact, through various teams, and runs a lot of road course races too. So that's some of that experience coming in. Same can be said for Walsh, runs a lot of road course races. He's mentioned before, he likes those, and Tanner Love with a problem.
Gathers it up. And slowly rejoins. Just on the apron there, gets back onto the racing surface. It looks like potentially a spin for him as he tries to get it back up onto the oval. I'm looking at Jimmy Mullis and Kane Cook right now. I think these two are about to have a little exchange between themselves. As here comes Jimmy Mullis on the recovery from his mistake earlier, which was with that man, Kane Cook. And he returns serves to be had. Doesn't look like it. Nice and respectful pass, nice and clean, and Mullis is finally through on Cook.
Some friendly jobs over the radio, let's put it that way. But to phrase it perfectly, some drivers just feel like if you try and force it on in, they're not going to appreciate that move. It's almost like the short track mentality where you see that graph with the quarter panel normally, where you just get to the edge of it, you expect the car on the bottom to back off, you get to the door, you have a good scrap, you are towards their quarter panel, and the car on the inside, to your inside, you back off. It's that same philosophy for some drivers on the surface, especially with road course racing as well, and to paraphrase, as long as you get the run, drivers will let you go. You try and dive bomb it in, or end up being more aggressive on the move, or say making contact, you're going to have some fisticuffs.
Road racing, I think, is different to oval racing as to when you command the advantage over your line. On the oval, as you say, you get to the quarter panel, you're going to be given the room. But on road racing, there's the B-pillar rule. You've got to get to the B-pillar by the time you're turning in. You're not there, that car's on the outside is going to turn into the racing line, and you've got to disappear somehow.
Nah. Guess where the distance just about of the B-pillar and the quarter panel is? About the exact same spot, just about. When you draw basically a straight line on down, right? As well, it's a similar or a different type of build for a lot of the road course cars compared to these, especially with some of the wheel dynamics, etc. You also have to keep in mind these are much heavier than a normal road racing car that you'll see for IMSA, for example, or in the Porsche Takeover Esports Super Cup. They're much more difficult to try and handle. You can be more, how do I phrase this, more with a bit of finesse, could say, with driving. These you kind of almost have to manhandle the way around the racetrack and try and fight the car in its heavy weight of thousands of pounds on the corners of the car.
You ever seen the Aussie supercars? Those things are heavy.
Yeah, in fact, similar construction, believe, to these machines, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Or similar in terms of how some of the dynamics work with it.
Yeah, they chuck a shell over a control chassis, pretty much, which is a bit like NASCAR. I think all the chassis are pretty much the same. It's different panels on the outside.
Keep in mind that next-gen car may have some inspiration from that supercar, and keep in mind, Scott McLaughlin, making his way over to the US next year, has talked about wanting to race in NASCAR, so there is some potential crossover in the coming years between these cars and supercars.
There's been crossover before. I've seen a NASCAR, without leaving my country, I've seen Joey Logano's Penske Ford doing laps at the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit on the Gold Coast.
That was with McLaughlin driving, too.
Yep.
So exactly what I'm talking about there.
And can I just say, they are 100% louder than the supercars. My word, they are loud. And that was just one car.
Yeah. There's a reason that for real-world racing, for stock car racing, the mindset is to really experience a race, you want to be at the race because it's a different experience than what you may get via TV in terms of the feeling from the stands, etc. Should note, while these drivers have stayed single file, pretty much consistent, Jimmy Mullis has finally gotten by Brian Mercurio after Mercurio made a mistake to the backstretch chicane. Mullis is back inside the top 10.
Yeah, good move from him. Mercurio didn't fight it. So Mullis back to the top 10. That's about where he was before that, coming together with Kane Cook. And up the road from him, we see this battle, or we did see a battle between Austrian Walsh and Dylan DeVol. Walsh is still hanging on to a decent spot after pretty much being on the back foot right from the get-go. But Dylan DeVol looking like he's got an advantage over him at the moment. He was a 10th quicker last time around at the stripe. And he's going to find a way through at this point.
Just waiting for the right moment, really, because the raw pace is near identical. And we're right towards that tip of some of the fall-off. If not, some of the fall-off has been more significant in their first runs. As long as you time it up right, you can make the smart move. Keep in mind as well, Duval's on one lap order or tires just about. Check that same lap tires. His car may come in a little bit later on in the run. In the infield, as we've seen, is where some drivers have thrived, and it's not an easy place to pass if you're right on the back bumper of somebody, even.
It's that... what is it? It's about a second and a half, I've heard. When you go to Formula 1, they say you need to be a second and a half quicker than the car in front to make the overtake. And not to the same extent, but that still applies here on road courses. You need to be quicker than the guy in front to make the move without them making a mistake. I would say it's not a second and a half like it is with those high downforce beasts, but still, maybe half a second quicker you need to be to decisively get by them. For Dylan DeVol right now, he doesn't have that advantage. He is preying on Walsh making a mistake, and by applying the pressure, staying this close to his bumper, he increases the chances of that happening. But very hard to keep that pressure up lap after lap. It becomes easy for yourself to make a mistake as well, because you start becoming unsighted for your braking points, your turning points, and the apexes and all that.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too. Compare some of the lines Walsh is taking in some of these corners compared to DeVol. Duval's been gaining a lot of time in the braking, and the thing that's hurting him, I think, partly is he's just getting a little bit too much curb on the right side tires in some cases. That's where he lost all the time he had gained in the bus stop, for example. He's better under braking in general. So, I think this is just where he needs to just pace himself. He doesn't make that same mistake, let's say again. He likely tries to make the pass into the final corner. He hits that turtle again. He's likely going to have to work again for another lap or so.
I'm loving this battle. This is a battle of wits and of steel nerves. Different lines to that final chicane, bus stop chicane, sorry. DeVol takes a wider entry. Walsh a little bit shallower. Comparison that lap, DeVol was quicker. About 2 car lengths back, heading towards the final braking zone of the circuit. Wow. Wow, look at the braking supremacy there for DeVol. Goes a little bit too deep though. It was too good. Thought it was too good to be true. Hangs 0 and out as well on the exit of the corner. Loses the ground he made up down the back of the circuit. The gap seesaws around this place.
I think he's almost just struggling with the apex mark, just where he needs to exactly turn in, and the apex has either been too wide or it's been too sharp. He cleans that up. I think he'll be okay for Tuesday, but for right now, if he wants to gain the spots, he needs to find a way to adapt and listen to some of the advice and fairly quickly here, as bit of mistake there from Walsh, carried a little bit too much speed for this leg onto NASCAR 1 just about.
Gets away with it, but you've got to be careful. Hey, by the way, update on the leader. 11.2 seconds, the gap for Casey Kerwin. So after he lost a couple of seconds, a little bit more in that pit stop cycle, he's opened it back out and he's looking comfortable as ever. There he is, coming through turns 3, turn 4, a couple of laps cars ahead. That won't concern him too much. Jarrett Liebert is back in second, and he's all by himself. As I said, about 11 seconds back. He's got 7 seconds in hand over third place Blake Reynolds. Reynolds has got 8 seconds in hand over the scrap between Walsh and Duval.
And you can tell with just some of the way some of these drivers have figured out their setups and how they hit their marks. Some of them have been struggling with lockup, and that's why they haven't been able to send it in as DPS, but others, they've just been able to find that exact sweet spot and brake bias and brake input and timing to carry the speed. That's what in part here just opened up the door for Minter to be under attack. Hello. That could have been disaster.
They escape with an inch of their life there. Christian Challenup goes by Tucker Minter. Zach Novak watching on to be liking his chances of getting the spot after seeing that. We'll also be hoping there's no more drama that involves him in this race.
By the way, you should note that Mullis was loose apparently a couple laps ago. You can see why. So, unfortunately for some of these cars, it's just the drivers who still need to find some work done are the ones who are burning up the right rear, it seems, or having a lot of tire spin. The ones who are the fastest at the top of the pylon are the ones who have limited that tire spin, have been able to be smooth on the throttle without fearing that car's going to snap on them to the grass or to the wall.
Yeah, you're running a fine line, and down at the tri-oval area where we have that final chicane in turn 1, it's all AstroTurf there, but the grass around the infield is proper grass, so there's a lot less grip if you make a mistake there as opposed to down towards the third chicane and turn 1. Make a mistake here, you give yourself a slowdown or big damage with the safety barrier there on the outside of the corner. Tucker Minter just lost another spot. Zach Novak got by him. So Minter tumbles back to 9th.
Yeah,
Still a net gain for him though on this race, +3.
Most is probably going to get to him as well, potentially in the final 10 laps. Might be able to stabilize for the top 10. But a couple error cars who might have a shot maybe to attack and pass some error cars. Jake Nichols still has that differing strategy we talked about. Kane Cook has a good shot. And of course, just this looming shadow that's been falling behind Walsh this entire time of Dylan Duval, where he slips up once, Dylan's taking off and running away for good probably. As long as he just is patient and defends well and doesn't really hold him up to the point where it's massively bogging on down, I think he's fine. In fact, he's really careful with hearing some of the throttle inputs and how he's hitting this gas out of the section. He's found his limit. He's been able to drive within that 90%, 5% of it specifically.
Not putting a foot wrong at the moment, with just over 10 laps to go left in this race. And still right on board with Oshie Walsh. Still, he is fending off the charges of Dylan Duval. over those curbs, getting right up over them, two-wheeling it through the last chicane. Pinpoint accuracy through 1 and 2, keeping the momentum up through 3 and 4. Roval lets the car drift out slightly wider, tries to drive it back into the apex for a great run onto this little short shoot between 4 and 5. Doesn't quite get it. He's looking high and low, trying to find a way by, but as I said earlier, he needs Walsh to make a mistake.
I don't know if it's going to happen at this point, though, with how he's been driving it. Just Walsh has really been dialed in on backing it on down. It's not as fast times, yes, and how much speed he can carry with the higher downforce from compared to last year's race. It's just fitting his driving style right to the T. And the thing is, they've got a buffer here too if they were to scrap a little bit. It's about 6 seconds back to Matheson, who's slower than these cars. Then about 9 seconds back from these cars to where Challenger, Novak, and their pack is. In our words, they're in a golden position here with 10 laps to go to at the very least finish top 5.
It'd be a good drive for both of them. Walsh, after being on the defensive for so long in this race, to walk over the top 5 will be good, even though we did grab the pole. Dylan Roval, meanwhile, started 7th. It'll be +2 for him, +3 if he gets the spot done, which is still not bad because, given the talent of the drivers up here, Kerwin, Liebert, Reynolds, Walsh, Roval, it's a heck of a top 5.
Getting chaotic in front of the race leader, Chenault, though, because John Gorlinski and Matt Forkaba are going right at it. John Gorlinski was passed by Forkaba, who was on fresher tires, bumped and ran him in the middle of the bus stop after the maneuver, and now, finally, I think has realized the difference there in the tire fall off. That was a lot of argy-barginess in the section of a couple of corners, it seemed.
Yeah, luckily, Gorlinski saw Cohen coming and sidestepped as Casey went up the inside at turn 1.
I think the main reason for that, mainly though, when thinking about it, is Matt's the last car on track. Gorlinski is a full lap ahead. I think he just didn't realize that what the exact scenario was there in terms of how tight it was and how much fresher tires that driver had at the moment.
Yeah, Forkapa a lap down. Gorlinski, well, also now a lap down as well, I guess. But he should be safe from being overtaken by Forkapa in this race, given Forkapa would somehow have to find about 1 minute and 20 seconds over him in the last 8.5 laps left to go at this Charlotte Roval course. Guess what? Oisin Walsh is still leading Dylan Roval, P4. In fact, he's stretched the gap out. Look at that. Biggest it's been for a little while between them. Even as Roval absolutely sends it through the braking zones. This race seems to be really strong. You just can't quite get the car launched out of the corners to get him close enough to utilize that braking supremacy.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if he's going to get that shot yet. We talked about the lap traffic with Matt Forkapa. Guess what? Casey Kerwin is in the thick of it now because Matt's reaching the drivers side by side. In turn, that's been holding up Casey and now is starting to lose him some time. That might be a chance if anything was to happen for Liebert, Reynolds, and these cars we were just keeping an eye on to try and then pounce. In fact, some of the traffic just saying, you know what? I'm just going to run off and away off to the sunset of the inside wall if I can to make sure I don't get into trouble with this car. And it's at the point where everyone's found the exact limits they can go to.
And some will still push it just a little bit too far as the tyres get to the very end of their life and the drivers get to the very end of their attention span. Kerwin still as aggressive as ever though, over the curbs. And up against the concrete. lap after lap. Mistake-free, this car has been the quickest out there.
Should be no surprise, by the way, that apparently Bobby Zelensky has been watching along and ghosting this race. So, at the very least, the drivers who are not in this race from the Cup Series have some of the data they need, or at least some of the ballpark times of what the other competitors are doing in terms of pace. In other words, this is definitely where, if you are a crew chief, a driver, a spotter, your notebook is filled with things that you need to maybe try, or things you might need to work on for Tuesday to make sure, especially if you're in the top 8, that you're ready for this race, for the start of the playoffs come Tuesday. As here we go. We've seen Christian Chowder before fight with some of these cars. We'll see how long it takes for him to get by here in the JTG Jewelry Racing Machine.
Mistake on the exit for Matheson. He's able to get down to the low side of the track to cover off Challoner. Now what does he do? Into the bus stop chicane. He opens up the inside for Challoner, who takes it. Into the corner they go, side by side. Matheson relinquish it, but Challoner, using too much of the curb, slides his way past. And that was rather awkward. It just about got away with it.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be able to stick it even with that inside part of the bus stop chicane. Just not enough grip. And here comes Mullis and Novak. So here comes the choo-choo train of cars. They are now slowly creeping in towards Walsh and Duval. If they had a couple more laps, they might have got there. But I don't know if they can get there at this rate.
No way. They're 10 seconds back at the moment. But still a mighty fine effort from these two. And from China as well. Fantastic recovery from Mullis. Wonder what he could have done if he had not have had that spin about halfway through this race. Certainly would have been probably up around Walsh and Duval. As it stands, still a chance at 6th in this one. How quickly can they dispatch Jake Matheson? Novak, about as close as Challoner was at this point last lap. Losing ground, though, as they go up on the gas. Maybe a bit of damage to that car.
Well, not just that. I think he's trying to back it up for a run out of the bus stop here. There it is.
He was a little bit squirrely on the gas with rear tyres complained. And he didn't get the run that he wanted. Too far back now to make a move.
Well, Matheson did a little bit of the turf there. He's losing some time here. Here comes Novak.
Still not there. Still not quite close enough. Matheson misses the apex at 1. That allows Novak up the inside. Careful there. Look how much they sew each other up. And Jimmy Mullis is looking for a way through. Matheson's got preferred line here. I think Mullis is laid back, trying to get the momentum on both of them. We've seen this move already today. Not going to happen there. As Novak going around the outside of Matheson, who's sliding. His tyres look like they are gone. Jimmy Mullis going to drive all the way around him as well.
One of the things said recently, believe for Matheson, that car is very tight. I think that's one of the keys potentially now being picked up on is loose is fast, right? In philosophy, guess what?
Yeah.
He just got blown by the cars who are losing their right rears.
Doesn't look tight. Looks loose. Way! There goes Novak. Mullis gets a piece of him. Matheson's going to get both those spots back, it looks like. Not quite going to get Mullis, but he gets Novak. Too much of the curve for Novak. Spun it out. Mullis had nowhere to go, but his rear bumper.
I don't think Matheson get back up there. Now the fun part's going to be how Novak attacks this, because Novak seems to be more a little on the looser edge. Also, how battles like this are going to shape up, because Cook and Nichols have both reeled in the back end of Mercurio.
Mercurio charged forwards, and now he's falling backwards. That's pretty much how his race has gone. Split into two distinctive halves of triumph and sorrow, basically. Still +2 since he started. If he can fend off both Nichols and Cook. Nichols is up 13 spots in this one. 2.5 laps to go, by the way. Get it turned, get the power down, get the momentum up onto the banking. Didn't quite get it. Tried to cut low very quickly to get down there and manufacture a run, but again, wasn't able to do so. You can see in the braking zone how much quicker that Nichols and Cook are over Mercurio. That's the one area where we've seen very distinctively where the cars with better tyre life are making their time.
Yeah, I think this is going to be something drivers are going to definitely pick up on after noticing some of the pace here. Some of the setup geometry when they look at things specifically. But to get specific with this, remember I talked about how Alex McCollum made it about 30 laps, then he ended up parking it? Nichols is now showing that exact form that you can make it about this distance, just about, if not a little bit more, if you are willing to save a touch. So now the fuel calculations are going to be even more extended if for the drivers who may have not done that testing, you know, okay, I can push it this far, much farther, compared to what I may have thought before based on some of the data picked up by some of these competitors. As here comes Novak, ready to pick up this spot.
Whoa, they both slide out of the corner. Neither of them look comfortable. But if I had to pick a winner, I would go with one that looks the least like it's going to fuck you off like a wild bull. That looks like Matheson's car, to be honest. Novak looks completely on edge, but he's driving the wheels off it. Top side does not work at all with the Roval. You get a little bit of momentum off the corner, but you lose so much actually through the corner because you're still getting up to speed that doesn't make it viable. Matheson slides, goes straight through. That's going to give the spot to Cook. Novak.
Yeah. That's going to be the slowdown he's going to have to serve throughout some of this time now for the lap. And Novak, at the very least, he ate as long as he doesn't loop it around for the next 2 laps or so. The interesting part's going to be, what does Tucker Minder do, his own teammate, once he gets the back bumper?
Up the inside. We'll see. Let's curve it on the racetrack. Not far away from the one-to-go signal for him. In fact, he's coming across the stripe to get it, so he's got one more lap to go here at the Charlotte Roval. This is a test session that has gone absolutely right in every sense that it could for Casey Kerwin as he prepares for Tuesday night's NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event from this racetrack in the championship fight. He has turned up today in the NASCAR iRacing Series, and in one of the biggest strength of fields we've seen all season, has asserted his dominance and learnt a lot about his car.
I think they're going to be fairly happy with the results here. Reynolds also going to be fairly happy with that P3 for Tuesday's race. A couple other drivers may have to go to the driving board, but you also have to think about this. The natural pace and talent and skill some of these drivers have had for the road course races throughout their career in iRacing come to the surface at tracks such as this. Casey showing he's one of the best.
And Denny Hamlin's esports team, the Michael Jordan plastered over the car. Denny Hamlin gets the race win with Casey Kerwin winning for him at Charlotte. A fantastic drive. That'll make the boss happy.
Pure domination, just about all the laps led by him. Took the lead on the second lap, in fact, and just ran away. Some of his fellow technical alliance mates completing a 1-2-3 finish for them, in fact.
Boyd Hogan finishes 19th, and in the fence, Gorlinski 21st. There's Reynolds, picks up P3 at the end, making it 2 World Championship drivers up inside that top 3. Osher and Walsh did end up finishing 4th out of the Duval. Their battle going right down to the wire. Challenger certainly had an eventful race. He'll pick up 6. Jimmy Mullis should be happy recovering to where he did, but might still be a little bit disappointed given that mistake earlier on. The last few drivers coming to the line now as well.
Really exciting race to say the very least. In total, though, Carlin is able to lap up the 16th run. That should be fairly impressive for him and what to expect come Tuesday from him.
Most certainly. Here's your full results then. At the end of 55 laps at Charlotte, Casey Kerwin wins by 15 seconds over Jarrett Liebert. Blake Reynolds picks up 3rd. Oshia Walsh is 4th. Dylan DeVol 5th. Christian Challoner comes home 6th ahead of Jimmy Mullis in 7th. Zach Novak, Jake Matheson, Tucker Minter run out your top 10.
In the end, Brian Mercurio coming home P11. Jake Nichols was able to get up to 12 with the undercut strategy. With Kane Cook close behind 13th. Bo Norden, he fell off a cliff in the closing stages to 14th. Ray Alfau in 15th. Timo Toika in 16th position. Rest of the field, 1 lap down or more. Alan Bellacino in 17th. Michael Guest way deep in the field in 18th tonight. Rough night for him. Boyd Hogan 19th, with Patrick Moose in 20th.
Andy Cipriano 21st lap down. Golinski, Carwile, Love for Carper, your top 25 for Carper, the first car, 2 laps down. Then Santiago Tires, Matthew Benson, and the cars that retired from this one. Jake Hickson, Alex McCollum, Ryan Michael Loser, Jose Solis Jr., Wesley Pistol, and Malik Ray. Unfortunately, we'll last place finish in this one for him after early contact with the fence. What a race that was, Justin.
What a race, and it was expected to be one where some of the attrition came into play, as well as one where it was difficult to pass. We talked about it a little bit, where if you have the raw pace in the car, as well as the talent to be able to race on a road course and have your markers down, guess what? You're likely rising up to the top. We've seen that tonight, with several drivers up double-digit positions starting deep in the field after not qualifying, while others who qualified up at the front, yes, had good qualifying sets, but once the fall-off started to come into play, they couldn't keep their tires underneath them. The fall-off started to cliff off more than some of the others. The braking zones were much more lighter earlier than some of the other competitors. There are some teams who are going to need to go back to the drawing board yet again to see what happens for the rest of the weekend and to be prepared, in some cases, for Tuesday.
Yeah, if there's one man that's going to be happy, it'll be Casey Kerwin. If there's a few that are going to be unhappy, well, we'll find out. And we will see on Tuesday night who learned the most today and who will come out on top in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series live on iRacing channels. Make sure you tune into that. Make sure you tune into next week's NASCAR iRacing Series event as well at 9 p.m. Eastern Time next Friday night. Same place, right here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure you give a like to SimSpeed Esports Network as well over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our latest broadcasts. But from myself tonight, Ryan Jones, from Justin Prince alongside me and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. Well, I was in the process of wrapping up, but I see we have a couple interviews, so you know what? Why don't we grab them in? We'll abort our wrap up and we'll have a chat to Blake Reynolds. Blake, hey, congratulations, P3 today. Tough old race. Are you happy or unhappy with how that's gone today?
I'm very happy. I didn't feel like I was that fast. I didn't feel like I had any pace compared to Casey, who I test with, and Jarrett. But yeah, the start of the race, man, I don't know, that first lap, I passed a couple guys, and then the pace just came out of nowhere. And then I just played it cool, kept the tires on it. Main goal was just not overheat anything. Engine, tires, head, just got to keep it cool, and that's what I did.
Certainly a good job. So you're P3, you come home 20 seconds behind Casey. You're going to come up against him on Tuesday night as well. He's the only Coca-Cola Series driver ahead of you in today's race, so 12 of you in total. Plus a few ghost racing as well, I hear. Are you a little bit worried about that gap, or do you feel like you might be able to overcome it, or is that not your target for Tuesday?
It's not really my target. Not him, at least. He's easily a top 5 car. Like, I don't know what some of the other teams have, but just racing with Casey and Graham Bolin if he runs in the NIS or anything, you'll see. Those guys are top 5 cars, definitely. Just driver. We got to make sure we got to have the set under us. But yeah, my goal is really top 20. That's all I got to do for the end of the year. I have 38 points on the 21st place, the cut, to stay in the series right now. So what I really need to do is gain on that cut, and really a top 20 in a really good day would be a top 15 for me.
Well, we're certainly wishing the best of luck in that. And today certainly went well for you in terms of achieving that on Tuesday night. Who do you want to thank? Who are the sponsors that get it done for you?
Well, I'll thank Team Dillon Esports, Coca-Cola, of course, Beneath Apparel, StockX, Sparko, Realtree, Austin Dillon, of course, and then back in Team Dead Zone Race, Houston Hammer, Dustin Linger, and Jarrett Liebert this week. He finished second in this race, but he put in a lot of time on our set this week.
Good job again, Blake. Congratulations. We'll see you out there on Tuesday night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Blake Reynolds picks up 3rd place today, and it was, as he mentioned, a 2nd place for Jarrett Liebert, seconded by Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. And first things first, P2 finished tonight. You were up in the front most of the evening. How were you feeling about that P2 behind Casey?
It felt good. Me, Casey, Blake have tested all week together. Knew for a fact that I was going to be a little bit off of Casey. And me and Blake, I kind of expected to be around the same pace in the race, and turned out we were. I'll take it, honestly. Casey's one of the best in the service at road, and I'm happy with it.
I know you can't say everything for this next question, but one of the big questions I think a lot of people, including the fans watching in sim and on broadcast, is how, as a driver and as a group, do you find the speed that some of your drivers had tonight? Because the main thing noticed by across the board was many of the drivers competing on Tuesday in their technical alliances were more confident under the brakes, were able to send it a little deeper under the brakes, and were the quickest in the infield compared to some of the others.
Yeah, really, it's all about just putting time every week and just figuring out what works and what doesn't, and just slowly getting better than the rest. And I think we brought a pretty good package for tonight, and just want to build on that for Tuesday.
Real quickly, on Tuesday, it was mentioned by Reynolds, his goal top 20. How do you feel the cars will factor in from your perspective for that race?
I can't really say on that. It's so many people can find speed in such a quick amount of time, and it can really go anywhere.
So overall, what should fans expect when some of your fellow drivers hit the track?
I think it'll probably be a decent run all around. Don't want to get your hopes up too much on anything, and just go in there and do the best that we can with the piece and with the drivers.
Who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
I thank Houston Hammer, Dustin Langer, everyone at Dead Zone for the help, and sponsor Splash and Go Graphics.
Congratulations on the P2 tonight.
Thank you.
Jarrett Liebert, P2 tonight. That was an interesting sequence from what I can tell, Ryan, with the ejector seat.
Yeah. Hey, for the 2nd time of asking, that will bring us to the end of our broadcast. I promise it's for real this time. I did all the sponsor plugs already, so I guess, yeah. From myself, Ryan Jones, Justin Prince, and Jay Kennedy. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. But hey, we'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness! Half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no!
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Yeah. afraid now. Put me on the stage now. I'm ready to rage now. I feel like an animal stuck in a cage and I'm ready to break out. My time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop. This time, like the last time, you better get ready to race to the top. Ready to do this, show you what the truth is. I step on the field, it's time to get real. I'm feeling so ruthless. My time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down, hand over my crown.